Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Eric Schwartz, Dean of the Humphrey School of Public Affairs, and on behalf of the faculty and the staff of our school, I am delighted to welcome you to today's commencement exercises. I want to thank our friend, Regent Peggy Lucas, for presiding over the conferral of degrees today. I also welcome Associate Vice Provost for Faculty and Academic Affairs, Rebecca Ropers-Hullman. Regent Lucas was a member of the Dean's Advisory Council before becoming a regent, and she and Vice Provost Ropers-Hullman are great friends of the Humphrey School who appreciate our institution's role as the university public affairs portal to the broader community and who provide us with wonderful support. So let me start by saying it's just great fun to be Dean of the Humphrey School, which among some 300 schools of public affairs in the country was just recently judged by our peers to be among the top 10, actually number 8, and that is an applause line. But we don't really take numbers too seriously, except, of course, in our policy analysis courses. That wasn't in my prepared remarks, but it was at my peril not to mention it. Because as we know that while our ranking was number 8, there really is no better place in the country to study public affairs, with an extraordinarily dedicated faculty, a deeply committed and mission-driven administrative team, and an increasingly diverse student body with energy, with enthusiasm, and a deep and enduring desire to make the most of their professional education. And indeed, in a school with so many different programs, public policy, human rights, international development practice, global policy, science, technology, and environmental policy, urban and regional planning, leadership and management, and what have I forgotten? There is a remarkable degree of cohesion within our institution. And for parents and friends and partners, you should know that this is because our students are united in their objective to spend their professional lives trying to make the world a better place, and also united in their commitment to develop the tools that best achieve that laudable objective. And parents and partners and friends who are with us today, oh, you should feel so awfully proud, not only of the accomplishments of your loved ones, but of the character and the quality of their commitments to public life. And that also is an applause line. Thank you. Thank you for your support of our students. They have done you proud. And we hope we have served them well. And while much of the focus in this institution is on developing the technical skills for success, ours is not a value-free environment. When Hubert Humphrey stood up at the 1948 Democratic National Convention and exhorted the Democratic Party to walk out of the shadow of states' rights and to march forthrightly into the bright sunshine of human rights, he stood for the proposition that public institutions have a role and a responsibility to promote objectives consistent with the values of a democratic society: non-discrimination, inclusion, equal rights, and justice for all. So given the current tenor of our national political debate, I've thought a fair amount about what I might say this afternoon a few words beyond my traditional welcome. Of course, what I won't address is the question of what one's partisan political preferences ought to be or ought not to be. We are a nonpartisan institution. But as I mentioned, we are not a value-free or an evidence-free institution. So what does a dean say to graduates, say to you all, going into the world of practice as we observe around us public discussion in which there is considerable support for calls for a complete and total shutdown of Muslims entering the United States, and what to say about public policy and public affairs graduates about public discussion in which there is sympathy or at least acceptance for nasty expressions of intolerance toward the disabled, toward women, toward immigrants and others. And I've thought a lot about this over the past couple of days, and I realize that I probably don't have to say much, as I expect, as I know, these challenges not only steel the determination of our students who are hopeful and optimistic about the boundless potential of humankind, but who are not naive about obstacles to progress. In contrast to some of the tenor of the public discussion today, comments that largely guide our students and our community are from a political figure of another generation who said, and I quote, that if we believe in our past and have faith in our future, we must dedicate ourselves to making each man, each woman, each child in America a full participant in American life. A public figure who said, and I quote again, that equality means equality for all, no exceptions, no yes, buts, no asterisk footnotes imposing limits. A political figure who said, and I quote one more time, that we must make America a land where no one is forgotten and in which we make our prosperity not the servant of our selfishness, but the instrument of our conscience. And of course, in all these statements, you all know who I'm quoting. It's Hubert Humphrey, our school's namesake, who was so very uneasy to use Humphrey's words about leaders who base their authority on the passions and hates of people. Hubert Humphrey spoke a good deal about the purpose of politics and about political leadership, and frankly, it's an issue that occupies, in one way or another, a fair amount of discussion at the Humphrey School, as it should. The conservative columnist, Michael Gerson, who was a speechwriter and advisor to former President George W. Bush, recently wrote about this issue and used words that, well, could have come from Hubert Humphrey when he wrote that truly inspiring leaders identify with the vulnerable among us, and like Hubert Humphrey said in so many ways, Gerson writes, and I quote, "The justice of a political system is determined by its treatment of the vulnerable and weak, a commitment that is inconsistent with the type of politics that beats up on the vulnerable and weak." So I'd encourage you all, though again, I don't need to encourage you. I don't need to encourage you to do that which you will already do. Rather, I'll express our school's support for you all, as you take the long view and appreciate that chauvinism, that nativism, that bullying is nothing new to our political culture, whether it is our original sin of slavery, 19th century know-nothing appeals to anti-immigrant sentiment, early 20th century anti-Semitic rants, say, like those spewed by Charles Edward Coughlin, who had tens of millions of followers during the 1930s, or later 20th century trafficking in innuendo and guilt by association of Senator Joe McCarthy. There have always been loud voices of intolerance appealing to our fears rather than our hopes and rather than our aspirations. And to our international students and to all our students, you know well that this challenge is not confined to the borders of the United States. We find intolerance around the world, from Burma and India to Austria, Greece, Denmark, and other parts of Europe to Central Africa and beyond. Our challenge, your challenge, is twofold, it seems to me. First, to confront and contest forthrightly those loud voices of intolerance at each and every turn, and as difficult as this may be, to promote a politics of civility that recognizes and seeks to address real fears and anxieties of millions of Americans who feel threatened, and millions around the world who feel threatened by rapid change that seems out of their control. And I think we all know that Hubert Humphrey wouldn't have it any other way. So Humphrey students, you have our deep and enduring support as you go out into the world to realize the principles that have animated your years with us. And that makes a life of service so valuable, a commitment to the common good in our increasingly diverse, complex, and exciting world. So now, having spoken too long, it's time to begin our program. So I will ask my friend and colleague, our beloved Associate Dean, Laura Bloomberg, to begin to present the academic awards.
Good afternoon. We have a very accomplished group of graduates here today, and when I announce these awards, you too, those of you in the audience, will see why those of us who reviewed this work that you're about to hear were so impressed by the scholarship of these students who I'm about to announce. The names of the awards and the criteria for which they are given are listed toward the back of your program for reference if you'd like to read aloud. Or read along, excuse me. Some of the awards are for group projects, and because we would like you to hear the names of all of the winners, please hold your applause until I've recognized the recipient or the recipients of these awards. The first award today is the Edward A. Burdick Legislative Award, named for a consummate public servant, a 60-year employee of the Minnesota House of Representatives. The award recognizes exceptional work that exemplifies bipartisanship in public policy or legislative work across Minnesota. This year's award is presented to Laura Ziegler. In her role, I will recognize her in a minute. In her role with the League of Minnesota Cities since 2012, Laura has worked on a major statewide initiative to eliminate disparities in broadband service that affect local economies and schools across the state. She has worked directly to build coalitions with key legislators from both political parties, showing a deep understanding of what is required to build trust, respect, and agreement across differences while moving initiatives forward. Congratulations, Laura. Please stand and be recognized. Established in 2011, the Diversity Paper Award recognizes a student or students who demonstrate the highest level of excellence on a topic related to public policy issues affecting diverse populations in the United States or globally. This year's award goes to a group of students for their capstone paper entitled Increasing Engagement with Communities of Color, a Toolkit for Carver County Parks and Recreation. In their paper, Chuck Demler, Kayla Dickens, Joe Hartman, Laurel Nightingale, and Kaylee Pirano presented Carver County with recommendations on how to build stronger relationships with its rapidly growing communities of color, while also meeting the needs of park users. Congratulations, team, for your well-deserved award. Would all of you please stand to be recognized? The Robert C. Ensweiler Award is given for the best paper or project in planning that demonstrates intellectual insight and creativity in consideration of the political environment. This award goes to a group of students this year, Brian Kays, Justin Stofferin, and Zachary Zweffler, for their project providing important policy and planning recommendations, again, to Carver County on prioritizing transportation investment. The nominating letter for this award stated, "I can confidently say that many professional planners and policy analysts do not have the level of political astuteness that this group of students possesses." Congratulations, team. Please stand to be recognized. The Freeman Stassen Award for International Activities challenges students to excel in exploring and confronting global issues. These activities can include innovation that helps strengthen the school's global policy program, a professional or course paper, or engagement in fieldwork. This year's award is given to Conquer Wahed Rahman for his professional paper that analyzes the effects of international migration on the labor market and education enrollment status of young people in Bangladesh. His findings are highly relevant in a context like Bangladesh, where the impact of migration is a critical issue, and where about 500,000 people, mostly men, migrate each year to go into oil-rich countries. Please stand and be recognized. The Gross Family Management and Leadership Award is presented to individual and team papers focused on management, leadership, or public service delivery. This year's individual award is presented to Emily Mueller for her project examining vacant and abandoned buildings in Chicago. Emily used a holistic research model to understand the dilemma and then argued for solutions that included speeding up political and legal actions against such properties and taking collaborative approaches that involve government, community, organizations, and residents in addressing the issue. Congratulations, Emily. Please stand to be recognized. But wait, there's more. The group award goes to Barnabas Birkland, William Christensen, Dana Dumbacher, and Madeline Mitchell. Oh, and Neil Younghans. Almost forgot you, Neil. Sorry about that. They are recognized for their capstone project that analyzes the Supplemental Nutritional Assistance Program, SNAP, sometimes also known as food stamps, and the employment and training programs of Hennepin and Ramsey counties. The project describes the demographics, systematic challenges, and recommendations to align administrative and structural resources. Please all stand to be recognized. The Hubert Award is given to students who demonstrate the highest level of excellence in using a multimedia or video project to communicate public policy, urban planning, and management topics. This year's award is presented to Ashton Miller and Tom Engrave. The Hubert Award Committee noticed a tremendous amount of creativity and originality in the students' video on invasive species, which was created for Professor Peter Kalo's water policy class. Parenthetically, I've seen this video, and it really is worth watching. It's impressive indeed. Congratulations, Ashton and Tom. Please stand to be recognized. We have two Master of Public Affairs paper awards to present. The first is given for the best paper by a student or team and goes to Marina Laguna Rutler for her paper that addresses how waiting times at bus stops impact trees, traffic, and pollution levels. Her paper has been cited by several online publications, including the Atlantic Monthly, and was accepted for presentation at the annual Transportation Research Board Conference in Washington, D.C. earlier this year. Congratulations, Marina. The second of these awards is the MPA Leadership Paper Award, presented to a student who can illustrate his or her own awareness of personal leadership growth and assessment of leadership capacity. It is awarded this year to Catherine K.T. Gallagher. KT's paper or project on her community's housing project demonstrated important transitions in personal leadership capacity as she helped to advance important changes in this field. Congratulations to Katie Gallagher. The Lloyd B. Short Award for the Best Master's Paper is selected on the basis of the importance of the issue and the quality of the analysis and writing. This year's winner is Eric Armakanki for his paper, his truly amazing paper, addressing security policy and efforts to defeat the Islamic State. In his insightful writing, Eric analyzed the Islamic State's governance and bureaucracy and concluded that security policy should not measure success based solely on the defeat of the Islamic State. Rather, regional and international allies must create a management or governance strategy for the millions of people currently living under Islamic State rule. Eric already stood to be recognized. If you'd like to do it again, though, you're welcome to. And now I'd like to invite your dean, Eric Schwartz, to return to the podium to present the Leadership Awards.
In addition to providing excellent education and professional training, our school prides itself on developing and honing leadership skills and encouraging good citizenship and service in the community. Each year, committees made up of students, faculty, and alumni are challenged to select just a few student leaders for special recognition in these areas. The Gary M. DeCramer Public Leadership Award honors the memory of Gary DeCramer, who directed our Master of Public Affairs program for 10 years and co-founded the MPA cohort. The recipient is either a graduating MPA student, Public Affairs Leadership Certificate student, or an international fellow who has demonstrated exemplary leadership. This year's recipient is Comfort Dondo. Born and raised in Zimbabwe, Comfort, that's good. Comfort has devoted her professional life to improving the lives of women and children. She has worked for USAID's Infant and Young Children's Nutrition Project and represents the people of Zimbabwe at the United Nations. In 2015, Comfort received the United Nations Certificate in Advanced Diplomacy. This past year, while completing her studies, she has been working for the Iowa Attorney General's Office as a community coordinator to protect women in underserved communities from domestic violence. And she co-authored a bill in Iowa to curb the practice of female genital mutilation. She has served on the advisory board for an immigrant domestic abuse shelter in St. Paul, and this summer plans to open a domestic abuse and sexual assault program for African and immigrant women in Minnesota. Congratulations, Comfort, for your admirable leadership and commitment. Please stand. Comfort, where are you? Please, well, I didn't see her stand, but maybe she did. The Jernberg Award for Student Life was created to recognize Professor Emeritus Jim Jernberg, whose work and contributions to the Humphrey School have helped to sustain and strengthen this institution enormously over the past many years. This year, The award is presented to an organization, the Planning Student Organization, which is the official student group of the Master of Urban and Regional Planning program. The group was elected by a vote of its peers and includes Carl Schutler, Karina Martin, Laura Hinson, Parker Evans, and Jonathan Cowgill, Darren Newman, and Wesley Durham. The organization works to enhance the educational experience for our MERP students, as they are known here. It is to foster a supportive and inclusive student community, advocate on behalf of students, and provide opportunities for planning students to network and advance their careers. Congratulations to this Planning Student Organization. Would all of you please stand? The last award for our program is the Class of 1999 Paul and Sheila Wellstone Award for Public Action and Academic Excellence, which memorializes two great public servants. The entering class of 1999 created this award to recognize a Humphrey School student whose dedication and service to progressive ideals and work, excuse me, and work towards social justice suggest a career path that emulates the Wellstones' core values. This year's recipient is Claire Staschek. The selection committee was greatly impressed with Claire's diversity and depth of experiences inside and outside of the Humphrey School. The committee noted Claire's lifelong commitment to grassroots social movements in the United States and Latin America and desire to create and model positive solutions. Her work advancing progressive ideas began when she became a community organizer and advocate in high school. She is passionate about social and environmental justice and community organizing, including issues of health equity, human rights, racial and gender equity, fair trade, food justice, and immigrant rights. Congratulations, Claire. Now, with a bit of trepidation, I think it is my pleasure to introduce this afternoon's student speaker. You will understand my comment in a minute. Tane Soldner Danger is a graduating MPP today, unless this speech goes incredibly poorly. He is the co-creator of the civics-inspired improv show, The Theater of Public Policy, which brings issues of policy and politics and science to life on stage through entirely unscripted comedy theater. It has been described by national press as something to do. Who wrote these lines? In 2014, his work connecting audiences to public policy conversations through humor and theater won him a fellowship from the St. Paul-based Bush Foundation, which has no connection, I'm told, to any former Republican presidents or brands of baked beans. Tane, you do know this is recorded, right? Okay. His fellowship comes to an end this month, so he wanted me to ask if anyone needs a house painter or a pool boy with a B+ understanding of regression analysis. I will be speaking to our communications director about proofreading these remarks. Please join me. Please join me. This is a happy moment. Please join me in welcoming this year's student speaker, Tane Solner-Danchik.
Thank you. Oh, my. Thank you all so much. Thank you so much, my fellow students, for putting us all in this position. Thank you so much to Dean Schwartz. So actually, before we begin, I wanted to say, you all heard at the top that the Humphrey School is now in the top 10, according to U.S. News and World Report, which is very, very exciting. And we're number 8. We're tied for number 8 with 3 other schools right now. And when I heard this, I wanted to try and take us up to the top. And so I looked at what our current political leaders are doing in order to try and rise in the polls and overtake their competitors. And I looked to basically what Donald Trump does. And this is entirely true. You can ask Chelsea. I wrote a speech for Dean Schwartz talking about our competitor schools in the style of Donald Trump tweets. And for some reason, he never read it. So I was going to read just a couple of them because this is being recorded. So here we go. So low-energy Gerald R. Ford School of Public Policy isn't moving in the polls. Sad. Weak Princeton is bad at math. The good news is nobody cares, especially me. Who should star in a reboot of Liar Liar? Ted Cruz, Hillary Clinton, or the Pierce School of Public Policy? Make public policy great again. Thank you. I don't know why. We want to be number 1. I think that it's fair to ask sort of how we got here. I mean, just last week I was on a public access political program in Bloomington because that's how big of a deal I am. And there was, I was on a panel with a longtime political leader, and he actually at one point did the advance work for our school's namesake, Hubert Humphrey. And he asked me, knowing that I was going to be graduating in about a week, do you think that Donald Trump represents a post-policy world? I said, oh, God, I hope not. I just spent 2 years immersed in data sets and policy memos in 12-point type with 1-inch margins. I really hope that that's not true. But it's fair to ask how we got to that point, how we got to a place where people think that their choice is more or less between compromising with a system that they think is inherently flawed or voting for somebody that promises to blow the entire thing up. Why national trust in institutions is at an all-time low. Why the most popular genre of children's literature is post-apocalyptic dystopian fantasy with werewolves. I have a theory as to why this is true, and this is somewhat simplified, but I think that for a long time, we, us, policy folks, thought that that our job was to go to a small room downtown with no windows and brew a pot of coffee and figure out how to solve some big problem, and we would produce one of these white papers, and we would give it, and that would be the answer, and we would hand it over. And I think that actually probably worked for a time, that there was a time when there were problems and issues that required just a really smart group of people thinking really hard about it. But I think that same model, even when it worked, and more so when it didn't work, probably bred some distrust. I think that it probably left a lot of people thinking that there's some disconnect between them and us, and that we're not the same and we're not connected. And I disagree with that. I think that we are. And I recognize that that's an oversimplification, but I think that distrust exists for better or for worse. And I think that compounds the fact that the problems that we're going to go out, and that's us, are going to go out and have to deal with, are really wicked hard. I think that you're thinking about something like an achievement gap or climate change or economic inequality. These aren't things that just a few smart people downtown can try and figure out on their own. It's something that requires people from a long list of backgrounds and a variety of disciplines and people with all different talents and understandings coming together and thinking about how do we figure this out cohesively, collaboratively, creatively. How do we do that? I will say my bias is that I sincerely believe that the world is understood through stories. I think that the way that people make sense of things is by telling themselves or telling others stories. And I'm not trying to discount expert analysis or data. I think all of those things are really important to telling those stories. But if you can't put it into some sort of narrative, I don't know if it ever connects for the broad swath of people. And worse, there's a good chance somebody else is going to come around and tell the story for you, which we probably don't want. So I have been thinking about this and thinking about how do I try and express this, and how do I try and get across the idea that stories are so important to the work that we're doing as policy analysts and analysists or implementers or makers. And this being the Humphrey School, I decided ultimately, well, first of all, I want to show, not tell you all why it's important to be good storytellers, but this being the Humphrey School, it's not fair for me to have to just do this all by myself. There should be a team element to this. And so, I'm going to ask if Dr. Bloomberg and Dean Schwartz would actually join me to do an improv game on stage. Yeah, okay. Okay, so yeah, no, you should come up here. So we have to stand in front of the teleprompter so they know that we're not cheating, that we're not scripting this. So, well, yeah, why doesn't he? I mean, it's almost worth getting a doctorate just for the hat. Now, okay, before we start, I think that we should set some group norms. I think I'm going to just assume best intentions. I have a list of goals that I have suggested, but if you want to add to the Google Doc later, that's fine. Okay, so what we're going to do, this is an actual improv exercise that I do. This is a one-word story, and we need to, it's going to be okay. This will be fine. We're going to do a kind of commencement words of wisdom that we're going to pass on to you, but we can each only speak one word at a time, all right? So it'd be like once upon a time, and we'll just go like that. And here we go. Okay, so once.
In
1,000
years.
You
will
find
bananas
in many
of
our
public
utilities
commissions.
And
I
am
embarrassed
also
because
I
don't
know
how
to
get
this
done.
All right, can we do a big round of applause? Hearts, forward movement. So good. That's good. That's good. That's good. Could you tell that we didn't practice that? That was real. So, I love that game. That is a honest to God improv game that I play with my cast, and I love it not just because it's fun and silly, but because that game to me mirrors what I think we should think about when we think about what is our role in telling a story or being part of the world or being good leaders? I think that there was a model once upon a time. I think that there was an image, and probably some people still buy into this, that a leader is somebody who marches off into battle, and then there's a whole group of people that follow up behind him or her and follow their orders. But that to me feels old or feels not complete. To me, the kind of leadership that I would want to exemplify and I'd want to see in all of us is something closer to that. It's something closer to a group of people being able to come together and tell a story that is bigger than any one of us could have come up with on our own, involving bananas. I think that is what's amazing about that, right? Is that what we just did there was we said something that, you know, if we had handed the microphone to any one of us, no one of us would have said that thing together. Probably. And it required all of us. So it required each of us to sort of know where we fit in that particular moment and where we fit in that larger story. If any one of us, I'm not going to throw anybody under the bus, if Dean Schwartz had, you know, just decided, oh, I'm going to make this story do what I want it to do, which is talk about advancing the common good, because this is a solemn occasion where we should take things seriously. And he had forced that in. It very well could have derailed the entire story, right? It could have made it so that those words didn't fit together at that particular moment. On the flip side, you know, it might be that one of us was getting bored with always saying the or and, but over and over. But if we didn't say that word, then the sentence wouldn't make sense. And I think that that's a really hard thing to know in the world, is how do I fit into this thing, and how am I helping make it bigger and better than it would be if I weren't here. I think that is how I hope we walk out into the world, and we walk out thinking about not, it's my job to go and fix everything myself, or it's my job to provide the data and analysis or thoughtful commentary so that somebody else can fix everything. But how do we fit into a larger story? How do we make something that we're working with, or the team that we're a part of, or the community that we exist in, or the world that we want to serve better because we're in it each and every moment? There's a Spanish poet, Antonio Machado, who wrote, "We have no road, we make the road by walking." And I love that, because all of us today will walk out of here, and some of us will be walking to jobs that we have, some of us will be walking to monster.com, but there's not a particular road, and I think what we need to do is make that road as we go. We need to think about, how do we fit into a big story that we're trying to tell? And how do we make sure that that story is something that is positive and inspiring, and something that we're proud to be a part of, and that brings other people into it and makes the story deeper and richer and more fun than it would have been if any one of us had been left out of it for even a minute. So with that, I will say thank you, and particularly thank you to Dean Schwartz and Dr. Bloomberg. Thank you so much to my fellow graduates. Have a good afternoon.
So in my mind's eye, I'm thinking that one of our Minnesotan graduates, whose parents are here, and the couple goes back to Montevideo, Bemidji, Wilmer, and they're having dinner tomorrow night, and they're talking about the graduation ceremony. And they say, well, It was nice, but it wasn't like the ceremonies of any of the other children. Thank you, Tane. Thank you for making it unlike the ceremonies of the other children. It is now my distinct pleasure and honor to introduce our commencement speaker, Mi Mua. Mi Mua has an incredibly inspiring story, which begins with her birth in Laos, immigration to the United States, where she earned 2 advanced degrees, was elected to public office, and has now been named not once, but twice to the most powerful women in Washington list by Washingtonian magazine. Currently, Mrs. Mua is the president and the executive director of Asian Americans Advancing Justice, AAJC, a leading nonprofit organization that works to advance the human and civil rights of Asian Americans and builds and promotes a fair and equitable society for all. Her family came to the United States as refugees, after first being forced to live in refugee camps in Thailand after leaving Laos. Her family ultimately arrived in the United States in the late 1970s. She attended Brown University and then went on to earn a master's degree in public affairs from the University of Texas at Austin, and then a law degree from the University of Minnesota. Mrs. Mua was the first Hmong American elected to the Minnesota legislature, and was also the first Hmong American elected to any state legislature in the United States. Her election made national history, broke barriers for Hmong American women, and had lasting political and cultural impacts on the entire Minnesota Hmong community and on other immigrant communities here. She has dedicated her life to advocating for Asian American and other vulnerable communities. Let me add that it is a particular honor for me to introduce Mi Mua. As in my own prior jobs in the House of Representatives, at the White House, at the State Department, I spent considerable time and energy on refugee issues in Southeast Asia, including efforts to secure the rights of Hmong refugees in Thailand, and first learned of Mi Mua not as Dean of the Humphrey School, but as a Washington official from Senator Al Franken when I was serving in the Obama administration. So it is with enormous pleasure that I introduce our commencement speaker and ask you to welcome Mi Mua.
Nyajong, and great afternoon to all of you. I'm trying to make this work. I think Tane Soldier, the dangerous one, may have busted this. Before I give my remarks, I want to thank Dean Shorts, the faculty and staff, all of you parents who are here today, and the graduating class of the Hubert H. Humphrey School of Public Affairs for this wonderful homecoming. A wonderful opportunity for me to address everyone here today and to really be back in Minnesota among family. Thank you so much. As the dean said, I was born in a thatch roof bamboo hut in a small jungle village in northern Laos, where there was no electricity or running water. My personal journey from the mountains of war-torn Laos to a refugee camp in Thailand, to the halls of the Minnesota State Senate, and now the steps of our nation's capital is an improbable story that can happen only in America. While much of my own memory of my family's journey to the United States has been recreated from years of retelling by my parents, the moments of recollection for me are not only dark and painful, but also significant in shaping my worldview and my life experience. Now, I don't recall much of the details, but I do remember walking for days and days by foot, arriving in the middle of the night at a riverbank that was the border between fear of persecution and death and fear of life and the unknown. I remember getting in a very small rowboat and getting off a very wet, slippery, and muddy riverbank. I have flashbacks, those long, hot nights, struggling to fall asleep inside the airless, makeshift army tents, fighting for space among the restless mass of bodies twisting and turning under the cover of mosquito nets. I'm sure some of them were trying to find relief from the sticky humidity of the night, but others were seeking refuge, however briefly, from the nightmares that must haunt them even in their sleep. I remember that my mom was pregnant at the time and then gave birth to my sister in the temporary refugee compound that the Thai military, with the assistance of the supervision of the United Nations, has set up for us. I can vividly relive the image of my mother wrapping my baby sister in a single surgical scrub shirt that my father had brought back from the refugee health center where he was working as a nursing assistant. Before our escape out of Laos, my father was a USAID trained medic during the Secret War in Laos, a clandestine CIE operation established to stop the flow of weapons and soldiers from North Vietnam into the South. I remember standing in line for every meal, and I recall that the food didn't taste like anything I'd ever seen or eaten before. But I ate it anyways, because I didn't know what the next meal was going to look like or when it would come again. I also remember how good it was to finally eat a bowl of white rice in water while sparingly licking a cube of sugar. I was 7 years old at the time. Coming to the United States as a political refugee, growing up Hmong American in the Midwest, and now working as a national advocate for social and civil rights in our nation's capital, sometimes I feel as if I have literally traveled through a warp of space and time, seemingly at random. Yet at the same time, I find myself in awe of the destiny that I am so fortunate to manifest. I would like to believe that perhaps it's the wondrous work of the spirits of the ancestors that has made this happen. Those early days of our refugee resettlement experiences was really, really tough for those of us who were part of the largest wave of Asians who came to this country in the late 70s and 80s. And yet we thrive despite the overt racism and bigotry that we encountered. You know, compared to so many of our relatives who perished along our flight to freedom, we had survived and we were given the chance to live. And in the deepest parts of my soul, I always knew that I owe it to all of those who didn't or couldn't make it to take full advantage of every opportunities that came my way in this great country. Most importantly, like many of you, I have struggled to make sure that my parents know in their lifetime that their quest to bring us to safety was not in vain. In the late 1970s, when our family came to the United States, we moved to a very small city where we became some of the first Asian American faces to ever live in that community. And with the Vietnam War as their only point of reference, many of our Anglo-American neighbors saw us as surrogates for America's enemies in Southeast Asia. And we would often get called chink or gook, and would often endure showers of spit or trash as we walked to school. I recall one event in particular that still has the power to anger me even today. It was a beautiful summer day, and my mother and I were sitting in front of our big bay window. She was trying to teach me how to do traditional Hmong embroidery. when out of the corner of my eye, I saw 3 young men riding by on their bicycles. And as they drew near, one of them threw a handful of eggs at the window. And as the eggs were streaking down the window, one of them came back in the other direction and threw another handful of eggs on the other side of the window. And though I was shocked, I wanted to see these boys closer. So I went up to the window, and as I was trying to identify them, the third boy came up our lawn on his bicycle, looked me in the eyes, and spat at the window. And as the 3 of them rode away, and as the eggs were streaking down the sides of the window, and the spit was running down the center of the window, I became so angry and enraged. I went to our closet and I took out my 3 aluminum T-ball bats. I put the bats by the door and I went to my parents and I asked them what they were going to do about the situation, for I was prepared to take some action. While my father told me to just ignore them, in fact, he said, "You're only 5 feet tall, 90 pounds, you'll just end up in the hospital." My mother said some things to me that provided a direction for my life and gave me a greater reason to make something of myself. My mom said, "These people don't know who we are or where we came from or even what kind of people we are. All they see is our skin color and the fact that we are different from them." She said, "In life and in the reality of living the rest of our lives in America, no matter how American we become, we will never be able to change the shape of our eyes, the texture of our hair, and the color of our skin. And someone somewhere will never like you because of the way you look." Then she said, "This is why you must study hard. You must finish high school, and you go to college, and you come back, and you be their boss." She said, "In your lifetime, many people will never like you because of the way you look, but some people will have to respect you because of who you are." So, as disrespected and as violated as I felt, I did not resort to violence, and my mother's words gave me strength and direction. And I graduated from high school, and indeed I went to college. And as a first-year student at Brown University, I discovered for the first time words and vocabularies that spoke to my negative experiences. Words that articulated and gave voice to that heavy, silent weight in the pit of my stomach. I became an activist and embarked on a personal journey to find my political identity as a refugee, as Asian, and woman of color living in America. I tasted and tested the principles of diversity, racism, and pluralism. And my newfound understanding of these principles liberated me, gave me a political voice, and helped to shape me into the political person that I am today. I will always be grateful for the many supportive professors at the Taubman Center at Brown University who did a fairly good job of liberalizing this refugee kid from the Midwest and turned her from an organic chemistry failing, biology major wannabe into a campus protesting, public policy changing, university hall occupying radical. Now, one of these individuals is in fact with us today. Dr. Edith Barrett, whose son is a member of this graduating class, was my professor. And thanks to Professor Barrett and others at the Public Policy Center, I did go on to the LBJ School of Public Affairs at the University of Texas to further focus on poverty policy, and eventually ended up here at home at the University of Minnesota Law School. It really was this homecoming that gave me the opportunities to work for local political candidates, engage in issue campaigns, and work to register new American voters that led to political organizing and running for the Minnesota State Senate. I'm often asked, what made me run for public office? And while I would love to be able to say that I was pushed by outraged or inspired by righteous issue anger, it wouldn't be true. I was inspired to run out of a deep sense of gratitude and awareness of how lucky I was to be living in this great country. In my efforts to register new Americans to vote, I saw that they were struggling to connect to our democratic process in an intentional and meaningful way. A struggle that is magnified by the failure of mainstream candidates and political parties to prioritize and civilly engage these often neglected and invisible voting blocs. And in fact, I decided to run precisely because I didn't think that I would win. So there was no risk in the face of a grand opportunity to energize and to bring new Americans and disenfranchised voices to the political process. All my life, I could never tell which was the worst burden to overcome, being a political refugee or being poor. What I did know, however, was that in either situation, I was too often living under someone else's rule. I think my decision to concentrate on public policy, to attain a law degree, and to work to change public policy, whether as a legislator or now working in Washington, D.C., really stems from a deep dissatisfaction with living by other people's rules, and a deep belief that I could make a better difference if I had a place at the rule-making table. When I first ran for office, a woman came up to me and told me she was glad I was running for office. She said, "If you don't make room for yourself at the table, you will end up on the menu." So when I was in the Senate, and sometimes even today as we fight against the erosion of our civil rights, protect immigrant rights and voting rights, I often think about her and how important it is to fight for a place at the table. I have learned that when good, thoughtful, passionate, and skilled public policy graduates like us are at the table, we always ask the questions about the unintended consequences of public policies, the costs and benefits to the affected communities, especially those who are underrepresented and most vulnerable. And we always ask about the impact to the disempowerment or the injustices to those who are voiceless. I've seen that while there are many smart people who can identify and analyze the problems, it takes a depth and breadth of diverse experiences to craft solutions that do not leave out an entire category of peoples or disadvantaged, nor render them completely invisible. On the night that I got elected, I was so struck with emotion that I couldn't deliver my victory speech. And while most people told me to stop crying and to start acting like a leader, my grandmother slowly walked up to me and she put her hand on my head, as only elders are allowed to do, and she spoke softly into my ears. And she told me to take as much time as I needed to gather myself. Then she said, "When you are ready, you go up to that microphone and you speak. And today and every day from this day forward, when you speak loudly and you speak clearly, especially when you feel that ball of tears gathering in your throat. For those tears represents the hundreds and thousands of souls who have never been heard. Today, your voice is no longer yours. Whenever you get to speak, you are giving voice to those who are agitating to be heard." We live in interesting times. By your presence here today, you've embarked on a leadership journey at a time when the voices of the future, our children, our youth, as so capably demonstrated by the Black Lives Matter movement, are hungry and impatient for partnerships to co-create the best possible future for all of us. And it is demanding that we start by addressing the long-standing inequities that continue to strangle some of us. By your presence here today, you have accepted the leadership mantle to envision, redesign, and reinvest in the most basic and fundamental institutions that are necessary for the economic growth and vitality of our collective future. The fact is, this nation will reach a demographic tipping point in 2044. And there will be a need for leaders who are prepared to harness this opportunity. One challenge, according to my friend Manuel Pasteur, is to address what he calls the racial generation gap, or the phenomenon where the older, whiter population do not see themselves reflected in the younger, browner population, thereby resulting in disinvestments in basic infrastructures like K-12 education. In a recent conversation with the N.E. Casey Foundation, he suggests that we need to change that by changing the narrative and helping the older generation see itself more in the younger generation. And part of that is recognizing that the future workers, the producers of the future, the folks who are going to be chipping into Social Security and Medicare and keeping those systems solvent, it's this younger cohort of color which is both coming into working age and moving into prime working age. Unless we're making the investments to make sure that that younger generation is productive and not over-incarcerated, it's working at full speed and not threatened by deportation, we're not going to be able to have a thriving American economy moving forward. Finally, your arrival at this ceremony today demonstrates that you are willing to entertain how we govern in a world where we may already be obsolete. And while we're still debating, our children are already living a future reality. So let me tell you a quick story to illustrate. In my family, we like to play board games. You live in Minnesota, with all the blizzards, you learn to play board games. One of these games is a game called Life. Now, you may recall that in that game of life, as you travel through the paths of life, you spin the wheel of fate, and it will dictate where you land. Sometimes you are dealt with a certain set of cards, which carries with it peril or fortune. And with this game comes a defined set of rules, which dictate specific paths about future, career, marriage, having children, and so on. So last winter, my 9-year-old daughter wanted to play. So we decided to reacquaint ourselves the rules of the game and began to play. Halfway through the game, she grabs the Post-it pad and began scribbling notes. When I asked her what she was doing, she proceeded to tell me that she was dissatisfied with the rules. And she wanted to propose just a few amendments. I said to her, well, what would you like to do? And she said, well, if you land in a space that says you have to get married, you do not have to get married, but you will have to pay a single person penalty to the bank. She says, if you do choose to get married, you should be allowed to marry a boy or a girl of the same gender. Because after all, the law of this country protects that right. If you land in a space that says you have to have a child and you are a girl, you can pay a penalty and don't have to add a child because, well, it is your right to choose. If you, however, land in this space and you are single or a single gender couple and you want a child, you can have one because you can adopt. And finally, she said, Mom, at any time throughout this game, if you choose to get a divorce, you can, but you must keep all your kids. Kids today live in a reality that is different from what we have seen or have been seeing. We need to wake up and catch up, or we will be left behind. If my 9-year-old child can assert her sense of rights to amend the rules in the game of life, it feels a little bit absurd that these realities are still being debated as we speak. So as you leave today, I commit to you my grandmother's wish. With your credentials and your knowledge and your life experiences, You are eminently qualified and will be positioned to be a voice for the voiceless. You will have many opportunities to speak. And so when you do speak, you speak loudly and clearly because you are giving voice to the countless souls who are agitating to be heard. And in your worst moments and toughest times, I hope that you will let my mother's advice and my grandmother's words and my daughter's story to give you inspiration and direction. Because, well, they have given me strength and guidance. So congratulations.
Thank you, Mi, for those compelling remarks. Now we come to what is probably, my lines say, what is probably the most anticipated part of the program. And on one level, I think that's true. But we've seen a lot of very interesting things today. So I think we will welcome a new class of graduates. Our graduates will be presented by the Director of Graduate Studies for their particular degree program, who are all noted in your program. Would Professor Raghi Assad please step to the podium to present our candidates for the Master of Development Practice degree.
It is my honor to present to you the graduates of the Masters of Development Practice. Abdi Wahab Ali. Megdalawit Astatke Bayu. John Chisholm. Felipe Daina Barroso. Christina Field. Amrita Vijay Jain. Faris Qasim. Kamala Devi Katirgamu. Maria Victoria Flores Pune. Trupti Sarode. Tai Alexandra Stefan. Yodit Amsalu Tesfaye. Amanda Trasef. Diego Antonio Villarraga Mostaceros. Frida Marie von Qualen. Evans Yamoa.
It is my honor to present to you the graduates from the Master of Public Affairs program. Anand Agrawal. Elizabeth Walker Brailsford. Mary Ann Browning. Amy Ann Delwell. Don Jarofsky. E. Timotheus Kamabawakai. Anurag Kapil. Semantics, Jeremiah King, Jr. Marina Laguna Rutler. Suzanne Patricia Lanto. Elizabeth Jane Lauder. Patricia Ann McNutt. Mohammed Fatih Morsi Alfash. Michael Adam Plotnick. Gail Renteria. Amber Ray Wildy. Shi Yin Wu.
It's my honor to present to you the candidates for the Master of Public Policy degree. Jenna Bacall Andriano. Eric Armakanki. Christopher Barch. Michael Beach. Anne Christina Benson. Barnabas Birkland. Aaron Blair. Darcy Lynn Butke. Candace Chang. Paidamoyo Chikati. William Dunhow Christensen. Trevor Robert Clayton. Emily Cobell. Kayla Lamary Dickens. Ariana Carissa Didion. Erica Christine Dietzel. Laurel Drain. Dana Dumbacher. Tori Dewis. Thomas Durfee. Emily Louise Edstrom. Andrew Fell. Matthew Gieske. Danny Ray Gorman. Andre Hahn. Luke Hansen. Anna Rose Heck. Britt Hines Amborn. Timothy Herbie. Aliyah Hodge. Kim Hover. Laura Harris Ziegler. Elizabeth Sunmi Khan. Ashir Kane Risman. Jamie Keneally. Brandon Lee Kenny. James Chegi Kinyanjui. Jenna Lynn Larson. Sangyu Lee. Gregory Lewin. Delgarma Alcasuran. Chelsea Matson. Brooke Edwards McManigal. Garrison O'Keefe McMurdy. Maribeth Menendez. Griffin Mary. Madeline Jane Mitchell. Mallory Michelle Mitchell. Marta Monti. Timothy Ryan Moreland. Emily Marie Mueller. Laurel Nightingale. Kendall Ojera. Caitlin Joanne Osborne. Ingyu Oyang. Kelly Francesca Pirano. Victoria Perkins. Jocelyn Pickren. Tian Chu. Kankar Wahidar Rahman. Dan Sagasser. Lorena Ratcliffe. Peter Schmidt. Tane Terry Soldner Danger. Karen Michelle Spitzfadden. Justin Michael Stofferin. Claire Stoshek. Ben Suker. Carrie Suplik Benton. Eric Michael Switzer. Leona Tao. Alexandra Tigritskaya. Renee Van Sicklen. Annika Justine Walls. Or are we skipping Neil? Is Neil there? Is there a Neil? Next on my list is Neil Younguns. Haley Kathleen Watska. Lindgren Chow.
I have the honor to present the graduates of the Master of Science in Science, Technology, and Environmental Policy. Rebecca Beets. Tashi Wangdi Gurung. Amanda Heather Hemmingson Yeager. John W. Howard.
It is now my pleasure to announce the graduates for the Masters in Urban and Regional Planning. Cameron James Bailey. Whitman Barrett. Britt Rose Berner. Erica Lindsay Brown. Jonathan Cogill. Wesley Durham. Parker Evans. Laura Hainson. Thomas Holmes. Umnia Ibrahim. Atticus Antonio Yaramia. Emily Marguerite Jorgensen. Dustin Kleingartner. Jake Knight. Hillary Lovelace. Karina Martin. Carl Shetler. Scott Charles Schumacher. Scott David Schaefer. Xingyi Wu.
Oh, okay, sure. Well, good afternoon. It's a real honor for me to be here today. I have special appreciation for the Humphrey School because when I attended this school 30 years ago in the deep dark past, majored in public policy, there was no Humphrey School. But I can assure you that in my journey for 30 years in the housing development industry, I found Humphrey grads everywhere, and I know you all will be everywhere. So you have much to be proud of, and I hope you'll keep track of all of us, keep track of this, keep in contact with the school and the university. It will be great to follow your journey. So now, upon recommendation of the faculty, and by the authority granted to the regents, I now confer on each of you the degree to which you have qualified. Congratulations, and please stand.
Well, this is fun. Congratulations on all of your accomplishments. You are now members of an august group of alumni throughout this community and around the world. To welcome you to the ranks of the alumni, it is my distinct pleasure to introduce the president of our Alumni Society Board, Jeff Williams. Jeff is Chief Executive Officer of Public Sector Consultants, a nonpartisan public policy research firm headquartered in Lansing, Michigan. At PSC, Jeff oversees the company's finances, personnel, client relations, and research projects. A staffer at the firm for 25 years, his consulting practice focuses on K-12 education, higher education, policy analysis, and large-scale program implementation. He's also a frequent commentator for radio, print, television journalists seeking nonpartisan election analysis. He is a 1996 graduate of the Humphrey School, where his studies focused on technology, energy, and environmental policy. He served as PASA president during his second year at the school, and he leads an alumni group that is truly remarkable and a critical component of our broader Humphrey community. So please join me in welcoming Jeff Williams. Thank you so much, Jeff.
Good afternoon and welcome, fellow alumni. I'm so pleased to be the first to use that title with you. On behalf of the Humphrey Alumni Society, as well as the University of Minnesota Alumni Association, it's my honor to congratulate all of you. Today, all that have become before you celebrate your commitment to the common good. You've reached this point through years of hard work, to be sure, but the real challenge does lie ahead of you in a lifetime dedication to achieving results. For that, you should be very proud. You now join a very large group of alums working as elected officials, analysts, lobbyists, researchers, managers, and academics. We are in government, we're in business, we're in nonprofits. We work on topics from city planning and economic development to human rights and social justice. What we all share is a commitment to the public good and our connection to this institution. The Humphrey Alumni Society is the mechanism that keeps this connection alive, not just within a single class or discipline, but across generations and across industries. As the dean said, I graduated from Humphrey 20 years ago. Hi, Professor Assad, we did survive. And I still collaborate with many individuals that I met here. Some have become lifelong friends. Some have become professional thinking partners. Some have become clients of my firm. And one very special classmate and alumna became my wife. We have 2 Humphrey alums in the household. No matter the connection, we share a common bond in our experience here at the school. And as you become comfortable in your chosen careers, please keep in touch. Let us all celebrate your achievements. Let us all lend a hand as you encounter challenges. Let us all offer 2 cents as you ponder what is possible. I hope you reach back to entering students as a mentor. I hope you reach out to prospective students to encourage in them a love of the public sphere. And even though you're holding a piece of paper that says you're done, I hope that you never stop seeking your own ways to learn, to grow, and improve. You are ambassadors of one of the nation's top public policy teaching and research institutions. So go forth and wield the influence that comes with that role and make a permanent, positive difference in the world. The school and the future of public policy depend on it. After all, as the president of another esteemed institution once said, behold the turtle. They only make progress when they stick their necks out. Thank you, congratulations, and welcome, fellow alumni.
Thank you, Jeff. And before I close, I also want to thank just our remarkable Humphrey administrative team for just making this an event that doesn't happen automatically. And so we want to express our real appreciation for and we want to thank the combo to my left. This was your maiden appearance, and I think you did very well. So we are very grateful. You just need a trombone. That's my only concern. On behalf of the Humphrey School community, I want to congratulate you, all of you, for a job so well done. Students, family, friends, and faculty members. A special thanks to all of you in the audience who have supported these men and women during their time at the Humphrey School. Now it's our turn to go and watch them change the world for the better. This concludes this afternoon's program. I ask that you please remain seated for the recessional. Students and their families are invited to take photographs by our professional photographer in the lobby. I hope that you will all join us for a reception with refreshments on the patio behind the concert hall. Again, thank you so much for celebrating with us today. Good afternoon.